Hello and welcome to Monday at 8. Just waiting for a few more people to log on. Today is Monday, for those of you that are watching at some point in the future. Today is Monday, the 6th of March. And yesterday we were talking our afternoon service, and we were looking at Psalm 119. So just going to wait to see if because it's only just gone 8 o'clock, so it might be that a few people are on their way in. I'm trying to work out how to say something in the YouTube chat. And I'm just trying to find some questions that I was asked earlier on. Right, I've got the questions ready. If anyone else has got any questions, please do ask them in the chat down the right-hand side. Hi, Mary. Good to see you. I see there's quite a few other people online as well. So let's get cracking. So yesterday we were looking at Psalm 119, and with the slightly provocative title for the service of "Is the Bible the Right Kind of Book?" And although we didn't live stream yesterday, that is recorded. The sermon is recorded and is on the website if you want to go and have a look at that. So I've got some questions here. At one point in the service, I said that as Christians we have, what did I say? Something like that. We have the instinct that reading the Bible should help us, and quite often, when we're making decisions, we rightly want to know what it is that God says, what God thinks, what God's will is for us. And I talked about how that, um, in terms, if you were asking questions about where to live, what job to do, and about a life partner, you might not find anything particularly specific and relevant in the Bible. And of course, I wasn't just saying for those three examples. Those three examples, obviously, fairly uh, big life decisions, but all sorts of things. We might quite rightly want to know what God's view is, and so that we can be obedient to what it is that He's saying to us. But there are very few verses in the Bible that are going to be specific enough to answer maybe the specific questions. And I know um, in the past I've been quite frustrated about, you read bits in the Bible and people ask questions and get specific answers, and yet um, quite often we don't, or very often we don't find that in the Bible. Hi, Caroline. Um, then a second question. So I talked about how I had the example of the cycling Bible and the fruit and veg Bible, and so Bible is used to talk about an authoritative text, and that's a one way in which the word is used. Bible just simply means books, in terms of where the word originates from. It's not just specifically talking about the book that we would call the Bible. And someone said, you talked about how some subjects have their own Bible, cycling, etc. If people accept that these books are authoritative on those subjects, why can't they accept that the Bible, in capital letter, with a capital B, the Bible, is authoritative? And I think, well, that's a good question. And for me, it just flags up some of the inconsistencies that people have when they think about truth, and when they talk about truth. They're quite happy to say there's no such thing as absolute truth, and yet if they were fixing their disc brakes on their bike, they would quite willingly accept that if you do this, it works, and if you do that, it doesn't work. So the logic of there being no such thing as absolute truth just falls apart fairly quickly once you start to actually think about it. I think also people um, don't want to take the Bible as authoritative because they've rejected the Creator, and so um, they've there's no space in their worldview for a Creator God, and therefore they have no space for His word either. And I think people tend to accept what they like, and things which they don't like, things which they are more challenging. They're much more willing just to have kind of nothing to do with that at all. And so that's what I would say on that. And then are we on three? Yes, a third question. Um, I think you are right in saying that one of the ways the Bible is the wrong kind of book is that society stroke culture today is very different from that of Bible times. In which case, how far do we go in insisting on the authority of the Bible as against what society stroke culture wants to hear? Um, I mean, if that was an essay question, I think there are various. You'd spend a substantial chunk of the essay unpacking some of the words in the question. I mean, so for example, what do we mean when we say that when we talk about the authority of the Bible? What do we mean? And I think one of the most helpful ways I've heard this unpacked is by a guy called N.T. Wright. Well, he sometimes he writes books as N.T. Wright when they're more complicated and more theological. And then if he's writing for a wider audience, he writes as Tom Wright, but it's the same guy. But he, in one a piece I read a long time ago, he was encouraging us to think about the Bible. Now, am I going to get this right? Am I going to make this more confusing? Imagine, so scrap everything I've just said. Imagine that you've got a play, and it's a play in 5 acts. So you've got Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, Act 4, and Act 5. And this is a play that was written a long time ago, but act over the course of time, Act 5 has been lost. So you've now got this play, but you've only got the first 4 acts. And he said, when we think about the Bible, we need to imagine that in this play, the actors they know what to do in Act 1, they know what to do in Act 2, they know what to do in Act 3 and Act 4 because they've got the play written out for them. But when it comes to Act 5, they don't have what to do, but they know the story so far. And so they know the story so far, they know the character, they know the plot, they know a number of things about the play up until now. And so their role is to immerse themselves in Acts 1 to 4, so that they can then continue and act out Act 5 in a way that is consistent with Acts 1 to 4. So they've got no idea what was in the mind of the person that wrote this play, but because they know Acts 1 to 4, it should be possible for them to um, act out Act 5 in a way that is consistent with everything that's gone before. And so I think, let's remind myself of the question again. So I think the authority of the Bible comes from us through meditating on God's word, knowing what the Bible teaches us about God and about ourselves and about sin and about the world and all these kind of things, so that in today's world we're able to take decisions and choices which are consistent with what has gone before. And so I think when we're talking about, I don't think we can say to people, you need to do this because it says it in the Bible. I do, that as a line no longer works. People don't accept that anymore. But I also, um, as I've said on numerous times, we don't do things just because they're written in the Bible. But we should, from the Bible, be able to learn how to live a life that is consistent with what we read in the Bible. And so, based on what we learn about God, etc., etc., etc. So, and I think also, I mean, in which case, how far do we go in insisting on the authority of the Bible as against what society and culture wants to hear? I mean, there's a sense in which what's written in the Bible is written for God's people. In the Bible, we learn about the God of the Bible, and we learn about the things that bring him pleasure and the things that bring him displeasure, and we learn how to live in a way that pleases him. But that doesn't make sense if you're not following that God. So if you're not wanting to follow the God of the Bible, it's that why would we expect people to obey things that I'm going to say are written in the Bible, even though I've just said we shouldn't do that, but you know what I mean. So it's I don't think it's our place to insist that people live a certain way if they've got no intention of following God. Because if you're not looking to follow God, it makes no sense to follow God's laws. Um, Obviously, when those people, I mean, if you think about what I said a couple of weeks ago about kind of Israel was um, Israel were the people of God, and the idea was that they were to live in such a way that everyone else was supposed to look at them and think, "Wow, if that's what it means, if that's what it looks like to be in relationship with the living God, then we want some of that." And so I think our role is to live lives which are honoring to God, um, not to insist that other people live in obedience to God until they're at a point at which they want to follow God. And the reason they want to follow God is because they see what God's doing in our lives and they think, well, I want some of that. So it doesn't make sense to go telling people who aren't Christians, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do the other, because they're not interested in obeying God. So why would they be? I have a feeling I'm just rambling and going round and round in circles, but hopefully that answers those questions. If not, either just drop me a message in the chat or send me another email if you're able to do that. I'll just check there's nothing in WhatsApp, and then I need to get back to sorting out our new kitchen. There's nothing in WhatsApp, nothing updated in the emails, and nothing in the YouTube chat. So hopefully my rambling has either totally confused you and you think he must know what he's talking about, or I've actually answered the questions as they were being asked. I mean, I think this is both a topic that I find really interesting, but also really challenging and quite difficult. But the idea that we immerse ourselves in the Bible so that we can live in a way that is consistent with what we find there without someone's got a power tool out downstairs. I don't know if you can hear that or not. Right, I am going to leave it there. It's about a quarter of an hour, which is what we normally aim for. Oh, it does make sense. Great, thank you for letting me know that it wasn't total rambling. But if you have any follow-up questions or anything, then just email me and we can either pick them up next week or look at them at some other time. I'm going to go down and investigate who's drilling what, where, and why. Okay, I will see you next time. Bye.